What's up, guys? Before we jump into the video, I've got a few housekeeping items to go through here. So first off, we've got winners. The draw for a weekly subscription to DFS On Demand, including Slack channel access. Those winners are Izzy09 and Jamin Finlaw. Hope I'm saying that right. I'll get in touch with you guys if I have your contact information. If not, feel free to shoot me a note through the website. If you want to be entered into a draw for a week subscription to my site, DFS On Demand, where all the tools come from, join us in the Slack channel. Two ways to do it. You make sure you're subscribed, like the video, and comment below what you would shoot at Medina this week. 7,600 yard par 72. I'd probably be lucky to break 100, maybe. Let me know what you would shoot. That's one way. Or go to iTunes, leave a 5-star review, say something nice about the show. You do not need to tell me what you're going to shoot over there. Otherwise, one other thing, we are headed towards the end of the PGA Tour season, and while it is the shortest off season in sports, it's like 2 weeks long. I'm going to take the opportunity to revamp a lot of the tools, add new things. I've already started this process. If there is something you want to see, whether it's a new tool or a tweak to a tool or whatever, tweet me at RickRunGood or comment below. Just get in touch with me. Speak now or forever hold your peace. As usual, if you are in our Slack channel already for being a DFSOD member, you will have the opportunity to test everything first. All right, that's it. On with the show. BMW Championship DraftKings video here. Medina Country Club out in Illinois. I honestly had to look at this a couple of times because when you look at Medina, like the lore of Medina, I feel like is so well documented. And then you look and you're like, oh, this hasn't been played on tour in forever, right? So, I mean, 2006 and 1999 PGA Championships, Tiger Woods wins both of those. Three-time U.S. Open host, but not recently since, I used to have it here. Hold on one second. Since 1990, probably remember it most vividly from the recent Ryder Cup 2012. So maybe that's why it's kind of more on the top of our brain than I kind of expect. But par 72. So we're back to the par 72. 7,600 yards is what I'm seeing it listed as, which would make it basically one of the longer courses that we're going to see in a while. Aaron Hills was longer for a U.S. Open. Torrey Pines South can play longer than this. So especially if it gets wet and the weather kicks up, you're going to want guys who can fly the ball further. Bombers might be much more in play this week. All right, let's go to the cheat sheet and see what we've got going on here. I'm seeing 6 golfers over $10,000. It is a field of 69 this week. Kevin Na has withdrawn. He will not be replaced because this is the FedEx Cup playoff. So it is 69 golfers. There is no cut. Generally speaking, in no cut events, when these studs get 4 rounds, the cream rises to the top. Mentioned it a little bit last week with the Northern Trust, where there was a cut, but so many guys got through that it kind of felt more like a no cut. So the cream did rise to the top. We saw Rahm, we saw DJ, we saw Rory, all in contention there at different points. So kind of the same philosophy I'll be going with this week. These 6 guys are going to cause issues because we're really splitting hairs on a lot of them. And I think what you're going to have to do is decide whether or not you want to go up and get one of these guys or you want to start down in the $9,000 range. I'll tell you, if I do spend up, the places I'm likely to go, I think Jon Rahm at 10,900 is generally pretty fair. The guy's been absolutely scorching. He's got like, second. He had like a 3rd place, a 2nd place, a win, an 11th, a 7th, a 3rd. Like his last six starts have been insane. He's gone from the 11th ranked golfer in the world to the 5th ranked golfer in the world in like 6 weeks. That's a weird way to look at it, but just kind of shows you, because like that a world golf ranking window, the rolling window is open so long. For a guy to make a move like that at the top is very impressive, and it shows you just how great he has been worldwide. Course, if it plays wet, if it plays long, he's so elite off the tee, you think he's going to be able to compete almost anywhere. And then Justin Rose is the other guy. So Rose made my core last week. He's 10,200 this week, so he's a little bit more expensive. Sneaky long. I don't think people realize how long he is off the tee. Again, another guy who just seems to be knocking on the door in a very similar way than what we saw Patrick Reed just last week. 20th at the Open Championship, 11th at the WGC, and 10th last week at the Northern Trust. Even with him fading a little bit on Sunday in tough conditions, he went from 5th to 10th. He's got 2 second-place finishes at the BMW Championship in his last 2 starts. Obviously not at Medina, but it's that time of year. Justin Rose, your defending FedEx Cup champion, he is not going to go down without a fight. I do have one concern about him, and it's this here that I'll pull up on the live leaderboard. He gained over 7.5 strokes putting last week, which is one of the, I think it is the biggest number I have on him dating back to like mid-2016. Only Billy Horschel and Jordan Spieth gained more strokes putting. So this is very uncharacteristic for Justin Rose. He basically was a neutral over 4 rounds on tee to green, and he was dead even on approaches and just like didn't do anything. All of his strokes came here from putting. So if that's going to be the case moving forward, I'm terrified, right? Like I don't want anybody's their entire existence to come from one stat, especially putting. So I am a little bit concerned about this. We'll see if it kind of just fixes itself and this is a one-off, but that is the concern surrounding Justin Rose this week if you can find one. If you're willing to forego one of the studs and start your lineups down here in the $9,000 range, there's really a lot of names. Obviously, everyone's playing well because you have to play well to get in here. But Patrick Cantlay at $9,800, to me, just had like the quietest 12th place finish I've ever seen last week. I don't remember seeing him on coverage. I don't remember hearing his name anywhere. Goes out, ho-hum, 12th place finish to add it to his, now 2 12th place finishes in a row. Always in contention. His tee to green game is, it's really second to none. He's been excellent this season, continues to just put himself in a great spot. So I think he'd be a really interesting place to start your lineups. And then if you want to go down a little bit lower here, the fact that Xander goes out and misses the cut last week probably keeps this price down at $8,600, where we know he's an elite player. We know he can show up in these fields. He finished 3rd at the BMW Championship last year. That price to me seems like the one that's most off from this range. And then you also get Paul Casey, who benefits, or I guess I shouldn't say he benefits, but maybe his ownership benefits. He will probably be less owned because we didn't see him last week. He opted to take the Northern Trust off and gear up for the BMW Championship. Well, Paul, this is it, buddy. This is what you've waited for. Now, if you take the week off, you better play well this week. Second place finish at the BMW Championship 3 years ago. That was 2016. He's played just fine coming into this. I think he's a really interesting option and one that I'm hoping goes fairly overlooked because we didn't see him in action last week. I do want to jump back over to that live leaderboard for a second and just sort by tee to green. And we could literally spend an hour talking about Jordan Spieth and this whole thing that he's doing right now, but I'll save that for another day. Guys that might be interesting for this week. I do think Louis Oosthuizen is interesting. So he was 3rd most strokes gained tee to green last week. He gained more than Patrick Reed, who ended up winning this thing. Jason Kokrak also shows up on this list. He's like 10th tee to green. He also lost strokes putting. There's a lot of guys on this list that played very well tee to green and just kind of blew it up on greens on the greens and played terribly. But if we go back to the cheat sheet, because I want to see where Louis is priced, and he's right here at $8,700. So, we've seen Louis' difficulty to actually win golf tournaments, but we've never seen him find difficulty in competing in golf tournaments. And that's exactly what he's doing right now. 20th place at the Open Championship, 20th at the WGC, and 6th at the Northern Trust. Always shows up in big events. He's got that, grand slam of runner-up finishes where he's finished 2nd in every major in his career, which is crazy and scary and impressive and all of the above, right? But he's there at $8,700. His game looks really sharp right now. Excellent tee to green. I'm wondering if that 8,700 number doesn't find his way into a ton of lineups. And the other guy that I mentioned down here is Jason Kokrak, 78, who definitely trending in the right direction. Remember, there was a time we were playing him in the middle of the year, like every single year. He was knocking out top 20s, top 20s, top 20s, and he kind of fell off a bit as, he couldn't keep that pace up the entire year, but he's been on a good stretch recently. 29th at the Rocket Mortgage, 32nd at the Open Championship, 6th at the Wyndham, 12th last week at the Northern Trust. And he's doing it in a way that we want to see it, which is T2 green, baby. So, he's never going to gain you a ton of strokes putting. He's a fairly neutral putter. He's pretty bad around the greens, but you might need to go super, super low to win here, which, the last 4 champions have all won under 20 or under or better. So I'm a little bit concerned that Kokrak can't get you there, can't get you to that number, but seems to be playing really well right now. If you compare him to the rest of his peers, I'd much prefer him to Francesco Molinari, even guys like Kevin Kisner, Shane Lowry. Like, they don't move the needle for me as much as Kokrak might at the moment. And there is a guy, before I leave the cheat sheet here, there's two other guys I just want to mention real quick. Sung Jae at 7,200. So Sung Jae Im, who just plays all the golf in the world. I was looking this up today. He's the tour leader in rounds played this year. He's played like 119. Adam Schenk is the only other guy who's played more than 100. Like, he just plays every single week, and he's rolling right now. So just going back to the Travelers, his finishes 21st, 15th, 26th, missed the cut at the Open Championship, 6th at the Wyndham, 38th at the Northern Trust. We talked about it a lot last week, where guys usually don't get their first win in FedEx Cup playoff events, but not necessarily need Sung Jae to win here, right? Just need him to play 4 rounds and make a ton of birdies, which is what he already does. His birdie or better percentage is like 20th on tour, fills it up in a hurry. He's going to get 4 rounds, which is where I want these birdie makers, and he's going to alleviate a lot of salary cap for you down there to make some moves up top if that's where you want to go. And then the last guy, I won't spend too much time on it because we talk about him every week. Corey Connors at $6,600. Just tee to green master, brutal on the greens. We know all about it, but 2 top 20 finishes in a row, or close enough, 22nd, 21st, the last 2 weeks. So Corey Connors playing well. If he catches a little hot putter, he's certainly going to contend, and he might go out and win, just like he already found the winner's circle once this year. All right, I will flip over to the course key stats here for just 1 second, because just like last week, we have a tournament where we get different courses every single year. So course key stats, obviously not as valuable this week as other weeks because I don't have Medina data. Nobody's got Medina data because it hasn't been played here. We haven't seen an event since PGA Championship in 2006. So this is BMW Championship history. So that includes, Crooked Sticks, Conway Farms, Aronimink, the courses that have been played here for the BMW Championship. So just keep that in mind. Not as much weight here, but there is one thing I want to sort by, and it's driving distance. With this being such a long course, with this being potential rain in the forecast where things get really, really wet, this might play even longer than the 7,600 that's listed on a par 72. And we can also, in the same way, in the same hour we spend with Jordan Spieth, we can spend an hour talking about bombers in rainy conditions and whether they need to carry it or whatever. But the further you hit it in general is going to be important this week. So if you just sort strictly by driving distance, number 1 is Cam Champ, who got hot for a bit. The rest of his game's so bad, but if he can put it all together for a few rounds, we saw him get hot for a bit recently. Then Rory, of course. Then Wyndham Clark, who's at $6,400, has played really, really well recently. His around the green game, his approach game is going to kill you, which is the one stat that we'd prefer, not be bad, but he's played better as of late. If you're looking for some deep cap relief and you think bombers are really going to be important this week, he's a guy. Dustin Johnson, Tony Finau, Gary Woodland, Brooks Koepka, right? Those are your driving distance guys. No surprises, but I did want to point out Champ and Clark if that is a route that you want to go. As we switch over to the strokes gain tool, I really like this visual where it shows you, salary and then average strokes gained per round. And it really does just show how consistently good Rory has been all year. He's just kind of head and shoulders above the rest of this field. He's not the most expensive guy here. He's the second most expensive guy, but he's in theory worth it. Other guys that are quote unquote worth it, which are on the correct side of this distribution, guys who are outpacing their salary peers with strokes gained total, are Patrick Cantlay, Adam Scott, Colin Morikawa. Those guys really stand out. Further down the list, way further down the list, it's not as big of a discrepancy, but Jim Furyk, Nate Lashley, they lead their respective pricing tiers as well. And then if I scroll down and show you, this is just who's hot, who's not, strokes gained total for the last 30 days. Are you surprised to see Webb Simpson here? Maybe you shouldn't be. We talk about him a lot, but to see him averaging 2.5 strokes gained per round over the last 30 days is really impressive. He's up there with Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, Brooks Koepka, the guys that we would say are the hottest players on the planet. And then some other names that we've already mentioned, Morikawa, Kokrak, providing that upper $7,000 range of relief. And then before we get out of here, let me just show you the guys who are putting well below their baseline and see if we can turn this around and find a good week for them. First of all, Tiger, although Tiger hasn't played in a while, so this is a very small sample size for him. Don't even, that's one round for Tiger, disregard that. Molinari, well below his baseline. Kuchar, a stroke and a tenth underneath his baseline. Grillo, who gave a nice gesture to the hole after missing a putt, flipping the bird. He's obviously not happy with his putting right now, and his stats show it. So those are a handful of guys that were really hoping to bounce back. Even Cam Champ, who is not a good putter, but has been so, even worse recently, looks like there's some room for him to be able to find his ceiling. All right, there you go. That is the BMW Championship. It's mostly, I think it's a lot about roster construction this week. You've got guys who are playing well. They're here for a reason. We're going to say the same thing next week. Next week, you're going to own 6 of the 30 golfers in the field. And we're going to have, just to figure out what that right combination of golfers are. Starts to feel a little bit like that this week. Lean on long hitters, lean on birdie makers, and see how many studs you can fit into your lineup. Enter the contest to win a DFS on demand with the instructions at the beginning of the show. Tweet me. It's at RickRunGood. Leave a comment below. I'll talk to you guys soon. Good luck.